Alright, so I'm going to review each one of these thumb rings I have that I bought, and I'll show you the one I made. So this one's really bulky, but it's got that little string, where your string goes, a little crease, groove, whatever, shelf. Uh, so yeah, I don't know what to call it exactly, but this is extremely, this is something you got to really work with on something like this because it's bulky. You really can't maneuver that great with it, and I have it cinched down, so it's not going to move around a lot. But you want it to be as far up as you can get it without it falling off. So, and I'm only a few feet away from the target, plenty of room. Uh, I like it. It is comfortable, but it's really bulky. So when you're doing a lot faster shooting with thumb draw, you want to have a little less restrictiveness, and this kind of restricts your movement a little bit because of the size of it. And you can probably take some pliers and squeeze it a little bit, but I don't know if that would damage it or not, so I just leave it as is. This is another big one. I have a suspension. I drilled my own holes in this to make this suspension in here. Just threw some leather thread and a piece of leather for the suspension. It holds it really good, but as you'll see, I mean, it's still kind of bulky, and this pinches on there. So if you're using the San Lita Dragon 10s that have a much wider mouth and throat for the knock, it's not going to work out that great. And so you got to be real, precise with this because there's a very small shelf groove, string rest, whatever you want to call it. Many people will call things different things, names, and it's not really as universal as you think. And it probably does have a distinctive name in that sport, but for all all intents and purposes, we'll just call it a shelf where the string would go. And I mean, I can get it to work, but this is like really, really big. This is a larger size. They didn't have my size, so I went a size larger. So this is the other brass one. I put my own suspension on, drilled holes in the brass, and this one is the proper size that the other brass one is that doesn't have a suspension, or rather a string on it for cinching down. I'll think of the name of it here in a little bit. But anyway, yeah, that's got a little bit more pronounced shelf or lip to where, so it's really easier to use. And the silver one is the same as this, but it's silver, and this one's tight, so it works out. I mean, you work with the equipment you're using, and it starts to work for you. But this is, you get used to doing that specifically. And this one can have a suspension on it, but I don't have. And you see how it kind of comes down a little bit and moves down the thumb, and you want your knuckle right inside the ring. I mean, it's perfectly barely there. And that's where you kind of, you still want to put your index finger, wrap it around your thumb nail right there on the very tip, so that way it works. Okay, but like I said, I've actually used this for a whole month to get used to it as you see it, without the suspension, to snug it to my thumb better. But I'm gonna go ahead and use this one I made and cinch that down. And this one works out. It's comfy, but it's still a little stiff in certain places. And so, yeah, there's a lot of material there, and it wanted to go. So it probably would have, if I didn't have the cinch on it, it probably would have went off and hit the target or floor or whatever. So I like the idea that I can do this, but I think I have too much material right here because it's really difficult. You can actually do this. It's kind of cheating, but you can take just the and yeah, it wants to come off. Take the leather, wrap it around instead of using just your thumb. Um, it does work out that way. I like it. So yeah. Booyah. All right. So this is the one I normally use. You see it all the time, and it works great. But I use this a lot more now. I did use that silver one for about a month because I was taking care of somebody's cats, and they seen this on my desk, and they knocked it down, and I lost it. I couldn't find it, so it took me a month to find it. They were playing with it, so I finally found it after they left. I moved everything around and found it underneath a table leg in the other room. So I was able to use this one again, and I was like, man, I'm gonna have to order me another one. They did something with it, ate it or something, I don't know, or threw it in the poop, and I already took the litter box out and it's gone. But I found it, so I started using it again, and it was a funny story, but that's the way it works. You know, some things work out good, some things work out, you know, it all depends. But thumb rings really depends on what you're wanting to do, especially if you're on horseback and you're doing the thumb ring thing. You might want to consider putting a cinch on this to get the for it to stay on your wrist in case you're moving around and bouncing around and something happens and it pops off, or the suspension excuse me, breaks, and you have to deal with, you know, it moving around a lot more, because this really snugs it down and it doesn't maneuver off your thumb very easily, even though this is the correct size for my thumb. And the other one is kind of big, but that cinch keeps it on there really good. And that's why I put those on those. I added them myself. They weren't there before. But you have the cinch on the or the wrist band or cinch that will keep this from falling off if it weren't like that, like with the silver one. And you have that to where, I mean, it's the right size, so it's not going to come off very easy. But having this wrist band on there, if you will, you know, it works out really well. And you know, you can drop it when you're not wearing it or using or shooting, and then just put it right back in. It goes in very quickly. And you know, I'm pulling back just a little bit. I'll do a full draw so that way you guys can see that. So that's the way it works. So it just all depends on what you're wanting to do: horseback, running through the woods, combat archery draw, however you want to do it. You know, I'd use the Slavic draw over thumb draw for that reason. And you can still use, especially when you don't have the suspension over this, right? And you have it cinched down, and you're good to go. You can still use the Slavic draw over the top combat load, even though this does get in the way a little bit. Hit right in the middle when it's tore up right there. But we'll do a full draw on this so that way you guys can see that really well. And I'll go off to my right side of the target on that donut right there. So yeah. And it's a lot more, not completely full draw. Let's do that. And we're up. So, yeah, but I'm really super close, and so it's not that hard. Get some good weather coming up. Hopefully I'll be able to get outside and get some 20-yard shots in with that same method. And my thumb ring as well. It's a little bit more accurate. I can take my time on the thumb draw and really, I don't want to use those arrows over there. They're all broadheads. I have to dig out all my target arrows and put them in one spot. Well, those Sanlitas are there, and they're really, I dare say, because these have tighter mouth and throat, they hang on to the string a lot better. So, okay, so yeah, when you're doing that, this gets in the way a little bit. Ow, and it slaps when you shoot real close. I'm not trying to break any knocks on these. So we'll go here. We'll reload. Oh, that was fast load, but I lost it. And right above it. Practice. Well, when I'm doing so many different styles, you get confused. So we'll do that. I'll move this over here. Oh, slap. Now, when it goes into this, you'll see a lot of holes that are already holes there or pretty wore out. It's pushing material towards the back, and there's just burlap in there. The broadheads go through the burlap, and they'll go into that wood right there behind it. But these won't. Now, this is a little higher. I'm going to shoot right here where it says BC 300. And, yeah. And I didn't do a great job on Contra on that one. I see that. You can tell with a lot of these. And these are 30-inch arrows. The 35-inch arrows are going to be, that was good, straight in there. And this one also. So you get your Contra. And sometimes it's a little exaggerated when you do it, but you got to practice doing that. And you get that muscle or instinctive, involuntary muscle, instinctive movement down. And that works out. So with all the thumb rings there, I will put the links in the description below for you. So that way you can check them out yourself. And have a Merry Christmas.